Finding and Following an Authentic Life. Last week, good catch. Last week, we had a really awesome discussion about these callings, which are the whispers of your soul, and the ego and duality. So we're going to continue with saying no to calls this time, and this is actually talking about limitations. And the first part here actually brings up something that Kathy, the point that Kathy made. We decline the invitations of our callings because we feel inadequate to the task. But the opposite is also true. We're afraid of our own power. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, says author Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. But our playing small doesn't serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. So he asks, how does this affect us? Well, he says, nothing so upsets the bishop, Joseph Chilton Pearce wrote in Evolution's End, as the rumour of a saint in his parish. And nothing so upsets those in power as when those who are not in power suddenly realise that they've been sitting down when they could be standing up. Actually, whatever position you've settled into is the one others have gotten used to. And they're likely to feel unhinged when you change your positions, question authority, disregard conventions, or strike out on your own. What happens when a martyr stops making sacrifices? When a pleaser stops pleasing? When a true blue friend changes colour? When a whisper suddenly shouts or a screamer suddenly whispers? What happens when you change whatever it was that you and others had come to rely on? In the heaving tectonics between you and others, what were once ocean bottoms or flatlands by a sleeping river now rear up into mountain divides, sometimes flung at 90-degree angle from their original positions. What were once floors are now walls. What was once concord is now discord. What was once acceptance is now rejection. A calling can have a tragic dimension. In addition, we ourselves may not take so kindly to our own power. Although feeling power is kind of like fearing wealth, and it's a little hard to get sympathy, power does have its dangers. For one thing, taking on our power can shatter our perceptions of our own limitations. And without those perceived limitations, not enough time or money or talent, a bad back, too many responsibilities, someone standing in our way, there are no longer any reasons to hold ourselves back. And as Giraffe Project Executive Director John Graham puts it, that is moth to the flame stuff. So say you believe, for instance, you can't follow a calling to teach classes in your area of expertise because no one will be interested. Yet you follow the prompting anyway, and the first class fills up. Now you're going to have to wonder what other limiting beliefs, morning Barney, you might need to update. Perhaps these include a belief that you're not good enough to teach, or there's no money in it, or it's only a matter of time before you're exposed as a fraud, As your excuses begin falling away, you begin taking the risks you'd always thought of as terrifying. Your life isn't so predictable anymore, and as you start to find out who you really are, which is always a bit of an acquired taste, it's always a bit nerve-wracking. Obstacles do not limit us only because we believe they do. We do not refuse calls only because we're stubborn and faint-hearted. Some limitations, poverty, imprisonment, disease or disability, being responsible for children and aged parents, geographical isolation, lack of any education or any talent, they are very real obstacles, exceptionally difficult to surmount. So, sometimes we're robbed of our calls by the fate in which we fell headlong at birth. In a tenement in Bangladesh, Jean Houston writes in A Mythic Life, I look into the eyes of a child so bright with intelligence that I know that given other circumstances, she would be just about anything she chose to be. Here, however, her future will consist of being married very early, constant childbearing, a strong possibility of being abused by her husband, disease, and early death. Under these circumstances, the notion of following a call seems out of place, almost impudent, a thing of privilege. Perhaps to some degree it is. They did, after all, have food, clothing, shelter, or even a tribe to whom they belong. As the singer Billie Holiday once remarked, you've got to have something to eat and a little love in your life before you can hold still for any damn body's sermon on how to behave. So, you can see how limitations can impede growth, and some of them do appear to be limitations that are outside your control.
But are there?
Sorry?
But are there?
Well,
Because we're coming into this life apparently agreeing to some of these things, like that girl being born into this family, being
Right.
born into a situation where it seems like no way out.
okay.
Yeah, isn't that in itself, I consider a calling. Ooh.
Okay.
It's not a calling in this lifetime, in nuts and bolts this life, but out for her soul growth, it's a calling.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yes, Achilles.
I hate to put a damper on things right away. But I was just thinking when you said who's the real you, I was thinking the minute you start thinking there's the real you, you are entering about the duality, and it doesn't matter what you think it is anymore. I mean, there is no real you. If you think there is
Right.
real you, then it doesn't matter what you think it is. So from that point of view, either everything is a calling or nothing is a calling, right?
Because we go on there.
But
Okay.
feel free to disregard. Feel free to disregard what I said and move on.
All right. Yes and no.
Thank you for being the period to the end of the paragraph.
Well, don't you think that everything, I mean, it's my opinion, everything's a calling, rather than nothing is calling. However, within that calling, and I'm not sure which book it was in, you know, and we've talked about it, there are callings within the callings. And
Yes.
there are callings, one calling, and then that, if you want to look at it in a linear way, that ends and then another one begins. So it's just, it seems to me that it's just constant.
Okay. Yes, Kathy.
And not every calling has to be something huge.
Right.
I
No,
mean,
just
getting
no.
up for that woman just to get
No.
up and wash the dishes and maybe avoid one beating one day, and to help another woman in the village avoid a beating might be her calling, or
Right.
something like that. I'm just making this up. But
Yes.
I mean, something relatively small but impactful in her community.
Okay. Jason?
I think the calling may seem at the time when you receive it more than you can handle.
Uh-huh.
But I was always taught, once you're given a calling and you take action, that what you need will come
Uh-huh.
as you proceed.
Okay.
Kind of like
Right.
we'll grow into
Right.
the role, and that's kind of part of the calling, I think, is
Uh-huh.
taking that faith, that leap of faith to
Right.
know you don't have the abilities, but that you'll learn them.
Good one.
And that when you do that, the universe will flood in to help you,
Right.
because
Uh-huh.
you said yes.
Or,
Ruth
or,
Or.
that calling could be a lesson in humility. Uh-oh.
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
That's another interesting point. Yes, John?
Would you reread that part where you said it was your exceptional talents make you more uncomfortable? What was that again? That we're more uncomfortable with
Oh, that's the
success?
quote from Marianne
I
Williams.
don't know if I believe it.
Okay, she said, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Yes, I can.
So I actually think that makes sense to me simply because when we are living in this illusory world, we are building, everything we're experiencing here is illusion.
Yes.
We've built it through our beliefs.
Right,
So from that point of view, if you change your beliefs, you can change everything. So
right.
if you want to, but I think we have to be careful to not judge that one state is better than the other.
Right.
But I think you can change anything. So
But I
that makes
think
sense.
also, the thing is that we've been socialized
It's only
through religion and
when you
everything.
compare to other people that you have that fear, because you're going to say, well, what are my friends and family going to think if I'm suddenly enlightened? You know, they're not going to get it.
Right.
That doesn't fear. I
And
don't fear
actually,
that
that's-
at all.
That's
Quite
part of the next, the
That's
next
good.
part of it. But the thing is
I
though,
was gonna
that
say,
we've
you
been
guys wanna jump in?
socialized not to shine our light. We've been socialized to be, you know, humble, yes.
But somebody's got to win. You know,
Yeah,
everybody's-
but you know,
might as well be you,
remember,
right?
Jesus said, do not hide your light under a basket, but set it on a stand so that it might light the way for others. Yes.
And then sometimes you can be totally unexpecting and unaware, and not totally unaware, but totally unsuspecting of what's coming up behind you, and your calling will take you on a journey
Right.
whether you agree or not.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you think you agree.
Right.
And
Well, that takes us back to the Jonah story that we started this chapter with. He did everything he could. He set out to go to Tarshish instead of Nineveh because God told him to go to Nineveh. So he said, I'm going to Tarshish. And of course, he ended up in the belly of the whale that spewed him out on the beach at Nineveh. Hey, darling. So, there we go. Yes, Akash.
I think it was here a couple of years ago that we talked about how if you survey people on what they would change in their lives, they say they won't change anything.
Well,
I thought there were some studies that were done that showed that people really, if you told them to go back and say what would you actually change in your life,
yeah.
when they were maybe in their later years or dying or whatever, they would probably say nothing.
Oh,
And I think there was something, but that would make sense because if everything is something you've chosen to happen to you
right.
in this life, then you know.
Well, actually, I think in the late 1700s in the Spectator magazine, Joseph Addison wrote an essay called The Dream. And in the dream, God said, okay, you can all come and throw in a heap anything that you have that is a trial, a tribulation. It could be a physical impairment, it could be mental, it could be financial, it could be whatever. Throw it in the heap. You know, get rid of it. But you have to choose something else from the heat to
Oh,
replace it.
Oh.
And so everybody went in and they all threw in their stuff and they all took something. And of course, in no time at all, they were all back wanting their original problem.
I do think also, because of where we have been lucky enough to be born, I mean, most of us, we do have food and shelter.
Uh-huh.
We do have physical safety to
Right.
some degree.
Right.
Maybe not guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed, but we
Right.
have. We have.
So
We're in
basically,
a country of abundance,
Right.
comparatively speaking. So it's like, just like in Spider-Man, with great whatever comes great
Power.
responsibility, power.
yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love superhero quotes.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
I just like to say, since I was born and I grew up in India, and so I've seen a lot of third world poverty, right, firsthand.
Right.
I think, in my opinion, the life in India is much more vivid in many ways, and people's experiences are quite different from here, but in no sense are they inferior. So
Right.
I think if some of us may have this. I'm saying you do, but I think some people may have a perception that people that are miserable or they're trying to sort of get out of their poverty.
Right.
They don't really spend a great deal of time thinking about their
No,
poverty.
I
or
agree with that, and I
the
think
it's-
different cultures have different things to them. Yes. Bonnie.
I want to go back to that we feel fear and power. I think that's an individual type situation. I'm not necessarily someone who likes to be the center of attention.
Right.
So
That's true.
if my calling is to be a public speaker, I'm not going to want to do that.
No. Absolutely.
So, I understand why I think it may be more of a feminine, maybe I'm not expressing it.
No,
He didn't believe it, but he only didn't believe it because he assumed that the calling was, he was enlightened.
Right.
But every calling is different,
Of course.
so,
I can see how that would be a factor, but
yeah.
Right.
A lot of us have been, whether we were told that or not, have kind of cowered down to make the people around you feel more comfortable.
Yes.
I mean,
Absolutely.
in all sorts of different ways.
Yes.
So-
Absolutely. All right.
With power comes responsibility.
Yes.
With enlightenment comes responsibility.
Right.
There you have it. So that would be my fear.
But the other thing too, though, that we do have to keep remembering, like I said, is that enlightenment is not one destination. It is not next stop enlightenment. Everybody else.
All right, we're done. No.
Enlightenment is a process that actually matches your own spiritual growth. You may reach a certain point and you become enlightened about that, but then you suddenly realize that, you don't know very much at all. I told you the French philosopher Montaigne wrote a wonderful treatise on, the meaning of life, the universe, and everything. And the final sentence that he wrote was, "Mais que sais-je?" at the end, which means, but what do I know?
well, that was a concession to the people that are saying, "Oh, you think you're so enlightened," and that's what you and I were saying, that
Right.
you're afraid to shine your light because everybody's going to say, "Whoa, look at him."
Well, there you are. But sometimes, if you are being called to shine your light, then you may not get a choice. Yes, Jason.
Yeah, I've noticed too that in the world as bodies, we also get knocked down a notch. We get this, yeah, I'm on my calling, yeah, I'm moving right along, I'm growing, I'm doing great, and the bus comes by and wait,
Absolutely.
It's kind of so, it creates that fear for the next time. It's like, okay, my next calling's coming, I'm there.
Right.
Yeah, I think maybe the older we get, and as we get conditioned, like you said, we tend to withdraw, tend to mute the calling so we don't have to look out for the bus.
Right. Yes, Laura.
I've been told that this is a crisis-bearing planet. I think just being here is a very bold and brave move that each of us has chosen. I think that as we grow in stature and nobility to handle the crises that come up. Yeah, you get a little worried about the bus coming, but another point becomes stronger within that says, I'm here to do this right now, in this moment, at this time. I can't say that it's going to be true 2 years from now, but right now, this is it.
That's the point, and to me, that is the process. And that is this thing about, you think you're enlightened, and getting there, doing good, and then you get hit by the bus. And that is the beginning of another time of learning, of growth, of opportunity for you to move forward. And then you get where you think, well, I'm pretty enlightened. And then along comes the bus. That is the thing. Yes.
Back to humility.
Yes. Yes. And as it is said, humility is a very, very strange virtue. Because as soon as you think you've got it, you lost it.
I'm so humble.
Yes, thank you, you're
As soon as you
right.
think you got it, the bus comes again.
I'm very humble. Yeah.
Another thing that I just recently read, and I've been contemplating this, is that the person in this book was asked, who's the master, your mind or your heart? Your mind, and his words were that the mind is the servant. And we have become a world that is serving the mind. And not the other way around.
Absolutely.
When it comes from the heart, when it's true to the heart, that's when you're right on cue and right on course. But when the mind gets in there and says, well, wait a minute, this I need something here. It starts us off on another path. But to become a master of the mind is to allow the heart to manifest itself.
I think that makes that makes sense to me. I think another way to say that maybe that the mind represents our egotistical illusions, and the heart represents just spontaneously existing without ego.
Right.
Or
again,
not without ego, but with minimal ego.
But again, we have to understand that that is how we have been socialized. The mind is all powerful. It was the movement towards the scientific model where unless you could prove it, it was not true. And what is really interesting is that now we're finding that science is proving stuff that they previously told us was not true. One of which is the heart is more powerful than the brain. The Heart Math Institute has proved, and so have many other studies, there is more electrical activity, more frequency coming from the heart than your brain ever thought about getting out there. But we've been conditioned and told to believe the mind is all powerful. You develop the mind, you can think and logic your way through all this spiritual stuff. Yes, Rutha.
I love the line in the movie Contact where the guy says to the science lady, Did you love your father? And she said, oh, yes. And he said, prove it.
Yes.
There it is, right
Yes.
there.
Because this is the thing.
I don't remember
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
I love that.
Yes.
I just remember that line.
I was just gonna say,
Barbara.
actually, it's what we always get back to, and that's balance.
Aha,
I mean,
yes.
We have our heart, but we also have our mind to also, be a part of,
Right.
just not leading. It's
Right.
not to lead, but it is to.
Exactly. And if you look at, what Achilles just proposed, which is that the mind and the ego are synonymous, then obviously you need that to survive. This notion that we can destroy the ego doesn't work. Yes, Marnie.
And I recently we're talking a lot about the mind and the heart, and to me, I look at things at what role they're supposed to play, what their job is. And so I've been struggling with some stuff that, anyway, I'm looking at, okay, well, I think this, I believe that, and then I know something. When, in truth, to me, all three of those are the same thing. That's my brain. The only difference between those three words is the volume.
Right.
The volume is what I feel.
Ah.
So whatever I think I know.
You have
Very
to watch
good, Marnie.
Achilles's YouTube video on beliefs, action, thoughts, and emotions.
Feel, yeah.
It,
Feel being the key.
But my brain does its part.
It explains
Thank
all
you,
of
guys.
that. Yeah, exactly. Laura, you wanted to say something?
I was just gonna take us all back to the fact that our mind is important,
Yes.
but it's not our master.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And I agree with that
And we live in-
100%.
And you pointed out a very good thing. We've been socialized to think that we can think
This is
our
the
way
master.
through.
Yes.
But the truth is, our heart is always telling us the direction to go in. if we
Exactly,
pay
and if you
attention to
look
it.
at what Archelaus said also about, compassion and the yin and the yang, and that the emotions are, the consciousness is the male aspect of us, or masculine aspect. It's energy. Remember that we're talking energy. We're not talking male, female. We're talking energy. And the emotions and everything are the feminine energy. You've got to look for balance. You've got to have the balance. And we've been living in a society which has been dominated by logos, the masculine energy, and that's why we're in the mess we are in right now. And then we keep hearing about the rise of the feminine. Well, you cannot ever get a situation where one or the other is dominant and hope to move forward. It is the balance of the two energies combined that will move you forward, the heart, the head. Yes, Jason?
I'm dealing with an aunt that has Alzheimer's,
Uh-huh,
and she's still alive without her mind.
uh-huh.
She's still moving, talking, doing things, eating, whatever else. But if your heart was to stop or go away,
Yes.
there is no.
Oh, that's another
So it's
very
almost
good
the mind is created
Yeah.
through
Oh, that's
the
a-
heart.
That's
in
a
a way.
really, really good point.
Yeah.
So maybe that quote that says we fear,
Our light.
maybe that's the mind fearing, but the heart doesn't fear, does it? So maybe when we get an impulse to do something from our heart, and then the mind goes, oh, no.
Yes, that's another really good point.
Yes.
Override.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Adrian?
Yeah, I would like to parse out when you're talking about heart, you're not talking about romantic love.
Right.
No.
Because there's no wisdom there and it goes wacko.
That's
So,
absolutely. Yeah, no, we're not talking that kind of love. Pam?
Yeah, in the book group, we studied Joe Dispenza for a while.
Yes.
And, he has a wonderful story where he said he does meditation, obviously, and he said that he has this thing now where when he goes through the airport checkout, he keeps getting stopped, and he looks back, and there's this big radiation coming out of his heart.
Yeah.
And they can't figure out what it is.
Right.
So it just shows that there's something real energy.
Absolutely, real energy. But and this is the whole thing, that we are now seeing that we've been bringing in these Eastern practices to do what? To quiet the mind.
To bring balance.
Not to get rid of it. That's the whole point. Even when you meditate, you can never get rid of your thoughts. All you can do is subdue. Jason.
I was going to say, the energy of the heart is like the one thing we all have in common. Once we start thinking, that's where we separate. If we can stick
Ooh,
with that.
that's
Oh
my gosh, what did you have for breakfast?
I don't know.
That is really good.
Wow.
Almost like, we're all being fed the heartbeat.
Yes.
We all get that same opportunity.
Wow.
But then once we start putting thought to it, we're all doing our own, separating out and doing our own little.
Absolutely.
That's where the leaf comes in and mucks it all up.
Yes, maybe.
And I think that education has done some of this to us too. I mean, because if you break it down into heart and mind, well, then we say we are educating the mind. And initially, and in tribal cultures, they were educating, but they were educating the whole. And as time has gone on, especially during the Industrial Revolution, education has become narrower. And is today it's becoming even more narrow. And so the breadth of what we would put into our mind that would also stimulate our heart and give us more balance is slowly being eked away. And so I think that's part of why we have these misunderstandings and fears, because we haven't been exposed, especially in this country, to some of the breadth of education that would open our hearts.
Right. Akhilesh.
I think that where we've been heading so far is what Mary just said, which is we've been over-specializing and just focusing on the brain and focusing on very utilitarian type of education. But I think we're on the cusp of a big change. And I think there's a confluence of many technologies that are coming up, like AI and cheap energy and things like that, where it's going to free us big time. I mean, I'm seeing basically a work week that's 3 days.
Yes.
For sure, in 10 years, because most of our jobs are going to be done by AI. There's going to be one human in the chain to sign off. And what do you need to sign off? I mean, if all your skills are being done by the AI, what you need to sign off are things like empathy, EQ, ethics, things like that. All of that points to an education of the whole person. And I like to go back, coming from my background in this life, I like to go back to what used to happen in India, like 2,000-3,000 years ago, which was the ashram type of education system, where you would go and live there for a few years and just learn holistically, like everything. So I think, and I think that used to happen in other places too, like Greece and
absolutely.
Kathy? I think it's very interesting thinking about how two things are happening at once, especially in this part of the country, at least, in my experience. You have what Mary and Akhilesh are saying about how education is becoming so much more brain and less heart and less, the extracurricular stuff, and they're just focusing on, learning all that stuff that's very nuts and bolts. And then on the other hand, you also have this upsurgence of people who are becoming light workers and becoming more in touch with their intuitive side and their higher senses. And unless I'm just becoming aware of it, I think it's starting to explode more, and it's even drifting into cultural language more and more about, is that your spirit animal? I'm seeing this, and people owning rocks that didn't own before, and so it's like there's this clash. We're coming to this clash where one is going way far to the left and one's going way far to the right.
Hopefully not.
Well, there is some hope in the education world.
Montessori schools are spreading, and they do more holistic than regular
Right.
classrooms are allowed to do. But the changes are coming to that system, and hopefully quicker, you know. Than
Absolutely.
slower.
Well, you know, when I look at the way that it's gone, even from when I was growing up. Yeah, Barbara.
I was going to go back to something about the heart,
Yes.
head, and our callings. I think the heart with the callings is for us to experience something, and that's where we gain wisdom. The experience, we can know it, we can believe it, you know, all of those, but until we experience something, and I think the heart callings is calling us to experience that so that we will gain wisdom.
Right.
And in
That's-
wisdom is where you
That's
are
interesting.
you know, a person that then can help others.
Right. Yes. Well, you know, when I was growing up in Scotland, the curriculum there, you had to. It was compulsory that you had to learn, you know, English and maths and arithmetic, which was separate. But you also had to do history, geography, PT, whether you liked it or not. Now, when you got to 14, then you could decide which path you wanted to go from there. So you could drop history, geography. French was compulsory. Latin for a while. I wasn't very good at that. Smart mouse. So it was a really comprehensive curriculum that covered absolutely everything. And then what's happening, and I notice it over here, is gradually they're stripping away. The focus has become on STEM, you know, the science, technology, engineering and mathematics, all that stuff. And they've been gradually stripping away, like, why do you need it? Music was compulsory.
Humanities,
Liberal
period.
arts.
All
You know,
humanities.
that's the thing, they're gradually stripping that out because they are saying, which coincides with what Akinash is talking about, moving more towards AI and stuff like that. But unless we keep that balance, we're going to be in trouble again. Yes, Jason?
Yeah, so there for about 10, 12 years, I've fought with a lot of addiction and violence and anger and stuff.
Right.
And I think if the school would have offered some sort of meditation option or some sort of class in school that was some sort of, it doesn't even have to be religious backed, but some kind of just finding yourself and finding peace and exploring it, I think a lot of young men could avoid that period.
Right. Well, that's happening now. That is, they're
and,
gradually
you know,
introducing
get that
it. Yes,
curriculum
Mary?
in.
Yeah, they are doing that. I know the school where Amy teaches in Florida, it started out as two schools, Ransom and named after a man in the Everglades, and they were for boys and girls, and they were almost a live-in school where they were not only taught education, but they were of you know, the way we think of education, but they were also, they lived in the community, and they worked. They went out into the Everglades. They worked in the environment. They learned about the environment that they lived in, and it has and they had a creed, you know, and from that point, from when the school started, it has become, you know, it's just so. They still do a lot of things for the community. They,
Right.
but as far as personal learning of, it has just changed humongously.
Well,
And
I mean,
there
I
are
think-
little schools here and there. There's one in California, the Gruber School,
Right.
who they go out and they do things. But these are little things, but they're all good. Any little thing is good. And it's a storm.
The thing is, bless you, the thing is, so not only are we narrowing our focus in education, But what is happening is that our children can't go out on the streets and play. And remember, that is where they used to learn their social skills. That is used to where they used to learn about just getting along with others. Because if you were playing a game and you didn't like what was going on, you learned to compromise. So all of that is
Or
gone.
beat them up.
Or that would be you, Mary. Barbara.
I just wanted to go back to the sound while we're focusing, why that became such a focus, was from the concept of competition, competing, that we had to expand those because we needed to compete against China, Japan, all these other places. It was based on competition, which is an unhealthy aspect of the Yang concept.
But see, the other thing too is that, you know, this is what Axelrod called the zero-sum game. We have this belief that there is a limited amount of resources, and if we don't grab it and get it and keep it, then they will grab it, get it, keep it. But the fact is, there's plenty for everybody.
Yeah, that's
So-
an illusion. That's something we've been sold that line of.
It is. We have been sold
been
that
sold,
line,
and
and
it's
we
a control game.
believe it.
Got
Yes.
It's a
enough money, you can
control
go to
game.
heaven.
And
Yeah,
the
well.
real question is, it comes down to, are you service to self or service to others?
Right.
Or in a balance of both.
Which is what we talked about last week, the fourth dimension. Moving into the fourth dimension to find the balance between service to self, and service to others. And once that becomes balanced, then we're moving forward. Yes, Jason.
So heart, mind again. It's heart, service to others.
There you go.
Mind, service to self. I mean,
There
it's
you
just,
go. Right.
we're always in that, that balance, that fluctuation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't even touch on a fraction of what I wanted to get to this morning, but there's always next week, so.